Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lord Ninja Joke MO Picks podcast. This is episode 36. We're going to be giving you all of our bets for the upcoming UFC Qatar, headlined by Arman Tsarukyan and Dan Hooker. As always, I'm joined by Josh in Australia and Will in the UK. Let's get into it.
I don't want to do this. Back-to-back terrible events. I lost 8.1 units from 20.5 units staked, so I got destroyed. Circumstantially, for me, it was a shit card because I was so busy in my personal life. I didn't really have enough time to dedicate towards things, which kind of saw me comfortable with the idea of gambling on the fly whilst I was watching the card, which basically just dug myself a hole. Essentially, I chased, the Cardinals in. I was chasing because I started off pretty badly. Fatima Klein and Carl Dorcas got the job done early on, like my highest staked bet at the time, and then it's a shame Klein couldn't finish that one. But then I had some handicap bets that went downhill. I think both of them were disappointing, to be honest. I think Kopylov won round 3 and should have lost 29-28, according to my scorecard. So I think that should have been a winner. Tracy Cortez won round 1 on all 3 judges' scorecards, so that was winning prior to her getting finished. And the finish was a bit sloppy, wasn't it? Let's be honest. You shouldn't be losing via a rear naked choke with no hooks in. So I was a bit bitter by that point. And then I had a confident stance on Rodolfo Vieira. That looked like shit. Like I'm happy to hold my hands up and say that was just a terrible bet. I think Bo Nickal's striking's improved, but he's young. That's, you should expect that. And I didn't. So that's on me. Benny Dariush, I still see the logic of why I bet him, but can you lose a bet in a worse way? Like, I think when that one happened, I was just like, Jesus Christ, like this is just not my night. Michael Morales, that one I'm quite happy with. I did originally stake more than 1 unit on it, but I kind of got a bit scared by the fact that everyone was on Brady. I honestly think my read for that one was possibly one of the best out there, if we're being honest. But it doesn't really matter when to say things like that when you lose every other bet. So I won't flex too much. As I say, whilst the card was going on, I stumbled across Weili Zhang most significant strikes at plus 110. The stats were absolutely there on that one. I didn't expect Valentina to have so much grappling dominance over her. I don't think anyone really did. But like Zhang throws more and she lands more. So like plus 110 for that felt like a gold mine. I think obviously the fact that I was quite down like on the slate, I think made me just overextend, and I put 4 units on that, which was a stupid thing to do. But I mean, she did outthrow her and she landed a decent number of significant strikes considering she spent most of her fight on her ass. So I don't think it was a bad bet. I think it just, the size thing was just hard to overcome. I also opt out of my Shevchenko moneyline position, which again, to add salt to the wounds was a terrible thing to do because she dominated. And finally, Jack Della Maddalena. I had a unit on him. I didn't want to be there. I should have tried to arb out of that. I did try to arb out of that one, but there wasn't the opportunity to make anything from it. So yeah, back-to-back shitty events. I will quickly address the fact that I got a bit of hate in the comment section last week. I mean, at the end of the day, the hate was warranted and justified because the person said I would lose again, and I did. So I get that. I can't really clap back, as they say. But what I will say is, like, prior to last week and this week, I was delivering like plus 6.5 units on a weekly basis almost. So like, it's tough when you hit the skid and you go on the losing streak, which I guess these 2 events are, and they're pretty heavy ones, pretty heavy losses. But like consistently, I've been profiting and have profited since we've been providing bets for this podcast. So I'm not worried. I just hope I can sort of like plug the rot pretty quickly. But yeah, onwards to hopefully more happy things. Dom, how did you get on at UFC 322?
Yeah, I had another event to forget. I'm in pretty much a rough patch at the moment. I'll just be honest about it. Lots of red here, disgusting slate. I think I had way too much confidence in Brady, and so I guess I should apologize to you, Will. Probably, I'm one of the people who made you less confident in Morales, and of course he looked the part. He looked the goods, so he did really well. Excited to see what's next for him. nothing really to be proud of on this slate. I mean, Pat Sabatini was a good bet, but it's like amongst the sea of so much red. It doesn't really matter, like you said. I did take a punt on Ethan Ewing after watching him. I thought that he would give Wellmaker problems, but it was just a sprinkle really. So again, nothing really to write home about. The overs, the overs in the main event was pretty obvious that was going to happen, so that was a good one. But yeah, overall it was a night to forget. And yeah, I think the problem is I back too many dogs, and sometimes the variance catches up with you. I mean, I'm not saying that Dariush was a good bet, but he didn't even last 30 seconds. You could feel a bit hard done by if you don't see any of the fight. But then everyone knew that was a risk, and Leon Edwards getting knocked out for the first time was certainly something I was less expecting than the Dariush knockout. And yeah, the main event was a bit of a snooze fest. And switching sides from Valentina to Zhang, it was just it was a comedy of errors, really. I'd sooner forget about it, but hey ho, these things happen. You've got to try and sort of integrate the learnings and try to avoid those mistakes in the future. Josh, how was your UFC 322?
It went relatively well. My prediction accuracy is a little bit up from the week before. It's meant to say 63.9%, but that's okay. That's whatever. Like the plus 0.03 is there, so that's my lock hit, which was Tsarukyan. That was a very weird fight. A lot of nut shots, and normally I don't put a newcomer as a lock, but I figured why not, man? He's like the hype guy on this fight, so why not? As for my parlay and my alt bets, it's a bit of a weird one to look at. Like my parlay hit, which is nice. I mean, that's always a great thing to see. But then, disappointedly, my alt bets all missed. I was really hoping for at least one of them to hit. Maybe the Vieira KO points would have hit, maybe, but it didn't. Absolutely not. So I am in the green, so to speak, but with a lot of red as well. Like it's a really weird outcome. But yeah, that's my my whole spiel.
Yeah, so this is the card coming up in Qatar. I think it's the first time the UFC's gone to Qatar, isn't it? Anything here that you guys are particularly looking forward to, apart from the main and the co-main, which are sort of the obvious ones? Anything outside of those that you're particularly looking forward to?
Only one really, and that would be the Ulanbekov Horiguchi fight. I am a huge fan of whatever happens in like Asian mixed martial arts, and Horiguchi is a legend. Like he's one of those big names out there that has stuck around the Ryzen era of or not era, but the organization. And so I am intrigued to see how he does in the UFC, in a fully sold out crowd, in a whole different organization, all these different rule sets and whatever. So I am intrigued to see him take on Ulanbekov, who has been a rather tricky challenge for most of his opponents. So we are in for a treat for that one. At least I am. But then, other than that, there's not really much that really stands out to me. So, yeah. What about you, Will?
Yeah, it's a strange card, isn't it? In that it starts off looking really appealing, but then when you get into the early prelims, it's just full of debutantes or people that we don't really know, which is obviously not my bag. Just because tape is hard to hard to come by or B, hard to trust. So I don't really like to get involved in that kind of thing. There are some fun spots though. I think Luke Riley versus Bogdan Grad stylistically is a very interesting one. There's lots of questions on lots of fighters. Jack Hermanson, Alex Perez, sort of like injury, layoff, KO sort of concerns. Interesting to see how they look on the day. Ulanbekov Horiguchi is an interesting fight. I definitely agree with you singling that one out, Josh. But yeah, I mean, Spivak versus not Spivak versus Gaziev. We've now changed that, haven't we, to Gaziev versus Waldo Cortez Acosta, which should be a fun one, especially on short notice for Waldo. But yeah, I mean, I think the main and co-main are good enough to carry it. So I'm intrigued, but it's not my favorite card I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the two fights that you both mentioned, Riley Grad and the Horiguchi Ulanbekov I think those are the two to watch outside of the main and co-main. I'm curious, obviously, about Jack Hermansson cutting to 170. That's going to be interesting. And also, yeah, I think Amabayev Perez could be interesting to see if Perez has recovered from that nasty knee injury that he suffered against Tatsuro Taira. So yeah, there's a few things to look forward to, but yeah, I agree overall that there are some spots here which just look, yeah, less said about them the better. So yeah, Will, if you take us through your bets this week.
Sure thing. So as I said, two shitty events in a row, so I've tried to keep it a little bit general with moneyline plays. Although one of the only props I'm playing is Tsarukyan versus Hooker to go over 3.5 rounds. I'm not really sure about the odds here. I don't really understand why everyone is so convinced that Tsarukyan is going to finish Hooker. Like, we know Hooker's a gritty guy. He's a dog. I don't see Tsarukyan doing it on the feet. It's probably going to be grappling based, and Tsarukyan is much more of a like a ground and pound guy than he is a submission guy. Both of them are possible. I'm not saying they're not. I just think that Hooker is someone who's going to make you work for it, you know. And I struggle to see Tsarukyan finishing him in 3.5 rounds at more than 50% of the time. So I thought there was value there, so I went with that. Secondly, Bilal Muhammad got a unit and a half on his money line at plus 170. Obviously, the odds have gone a lot worse. That was quite a volatile fight on the money line. I'm surprised Gary's being backed so strongly. We talked about it in the early leans podcast, but like, I just don't think there's enough evidence that Gary can stop Bilal from doing what Bilal does. And historically, people always sleep on Bilal. They forget that he's capable of like really good things in this kind of spot. And I think he can do it again. You know, Shavkat had some grappling time against Gary, but it wasn't that much. And Shavkat's not he's not a wrestler, is he? He's not super reliable. And Bilal is, you know, I mean, look at I think this one could look very similar to the Leon Edwards fight. I also think one of my big takeaways from that Shavkat versus Gary fight is that Gary's takedown defense is a red herring at this point. Not saying that he doesn't have good takedown defense, but everyone is saying that he stuffed Shavkat's takedowns, therefore he should be fine against Bilal. Completely different kettle of fish. Body lock takedowns versus single and double legs. Gary didn't stuff any double legs. He only stuffed body lock trips. And Bilal's a double leg kind of guy. So I think it's really on the table here for a fight that, in my opinion, should be nearish to a pick'em. So I've also combined that with Bilal to win in over 2.5 rounds because we know Bilal don't finish much. So just trying to squeeze as much juice as I can out of that one. Got 3 units on Luke Riley. Very unlike me to go heavy on a debutant as a big favorite. So there's lots of things that are very different for me on this bet, but I just don't know how Bogdan Grad wins this one at a replicable rate. Riley can be taken down and Bogdan Grad will take him down, but Grad's got pretty average top control, not much finishing ability outside of attritional stuff. But Luke Riley's got great cardio and great get-ups, and he's got better cardio than Grad, in my opinion. So I think Grad's path to victory walks him headfirst into his path to losing, if that makes sense. So Riley can finish it early. Riley can finish it midway through. He can definitely finish it late. So I just think I find it hard to really make a case for Grad winning this fight at a consistent clip. And so for me, minus 225, what is that, like 69-70% probability? I think there's a lot on the table there. I think Riley should be up in like the minus 400 regions, honestly. So gone a bit more aggressive there. Next up, Ryan Loder. This is one that's long gone now. I think when the line opened at the start of the week, he was like plus 150, which is what I took him at. We know the case with Nordiev. He grapples himself, but he also can't grapple when he's on the defensive side of it. He's just got terrible like grappling instincts from the bottom. And Ryan Loder himself is a wrestler. I believe like D1 wrestler level. So like, you know, there's a lot to like there in terms of him navigating his way to the path of least resistance. And at plus 150, I just didn't think that made any sense. It's now pretty much a pick'em or close to. So I think the market's agreed with me, which is nice. Finally, Shamrock in rounds 1 or 2. I literally have not done any tape for this fight. I just know that Rock seems to have very front-loaded dangerousness, and I'm not really sure about Aliyev. I don't really think he's impressed me at all. So I just felt like plus 550 for a guy to do what he usually does and hit his path to victory is worth it for I forgot to put the stake in there, but that's a 0.5 unit bet. So not going to break the bank if it doesn't win. Feels like a sprinkle, but that's props for you. So yeah, weird slate overall. One spot of big confidence, and then the rest are all just sort of equally aligned. I do quite like a lot of these positions. I think from an odds perspective, Bilal's the only one that's moved against me. So intrigued to see how it goes, but like nothing I really want to campaign for apart from Riley, really. So how about you, Dom? Over to you.
Yeah, I've kept it pretty light this week. I didn't really think it was a card where there was a lot of great betting opportunities. I do think, like you, that Bilal is being underrated. I think the odds on him now are 3.2 plus 220. Pretty good on the money line. I mean, you could play the decision prop, and that's like plus 300. But I think there's value on the money line, because if Bilal secures a takedown in the first round, I think all these bettors on Ian Gary are going to be feeling pretty worried. Basically, he just needs to, to get the takedowns, and if he does, then I think he could do Bilal things, right, and win the fight by decision. I think Gary's takedown defense, like you say, it's not really been tested. He's not really fought anyone like Bilal. So that's the main thing. When you look in the fight history, yes, there was that great fight against Shavkat. And yes, I know Ian Gary's telling us whenever he mentions that fight, he always says it was 3-2. It's like, yeah, okay. he's as proud of that loss as he is of any of his wins. People forget that he was training with Shavkat and they knew each other. And I think, Gary's just got one of these people who gets in your head, right? And I'm not saying he was in Shavkat's head, but definitely that fight played out a lot closer than the odds predicted. So Gary was plus 300. I think I bet on Gary that night. I often bet on Gary against Prates. But here, I just feel like it's not good value. I think betting Ian Gary at whatever it is now, minus 200, I think it's pretty crazy. I think it's going to be a close fight. It won't surprise me if Gary wins the decision, but I think it's going to be close. Then I've got Mixbeck Oralby. I got jumped on his money line slightly early. It is a steep price, but to be honest, I'm not even sure this fight will happen. Like I'm really curious about the weight cut for Jack Hermansson, because I watched some of his weighing footage at 185, and this guy is struggling to make 185. When he makes 185, he usually lets out a mighty Viking roar, right? Because he's so happy. So how is he going to make? It's going to be a mighty Viking whimper, I think, if he makes 170. He's going to look like a shell of a man. And there are many times throughout UFC history where a fighter has barely made their weight class, like TJ Dillashaw, making bantamweight, or Cody Garbrandt making bantamweight. They made it, but then they cut down to 125. And in those singular fights where they cut down to 125, they both got finished in the first round. So you compromise yourself if you go down too far. It's a 15-pound weight difference from 185 to 170. So skeptical personally that the fight will even happen. Very curious to see what Hermansson looks like on the scales. Happy to take the Oralby money line, but I also took inside the distance. Also took sub. Oralby has a lot of subs on his record. Yeah, has a lot of KOs as well. So to be fair, it could go either way in the first round. And depending on how he looks like on the scales, I'll take the round one prop as well. I might put a bit on it before the weigh-in, just because I'm really feeling like this is not going to be a good cut for Hermansson. I'm sure Hermansson knows what he's doing. Maybe he did a practice cut, but it's always a bit different when you're out there in the desert and you're surrounded by strange things and you've got to do that cut. We'll see how it goes. I also took the Belal points handicap, which means Belal just needs to win one round. I really feel strongly that Belal can win a round if he gets a takedown. I just don't think Gary can evade his takedowns for 3 rounds. We just haven't seen Gary fight anyone like this who's just going to be persistent, shoot, reshoot, double leg, single leg, whatever it takes. I think Belal will get him down. I don't think Belal will necessarily do a lot of damage to Gary on the floor, but for that reason, win a round and the points handicap cashes. Further down, I've got a square parlay of Orolbai and Albayev. I just wanted to have something on Albayev. I think that he's the side. I think Perez has had injuries. Obviously, he fought a year and 5 months ago, and he got injured against Tatsuro Taira, as already mentioned. He's coming back from that injury. He was supposed to fight Steve Erceg earlier in the year, and he got a hand injury. So I think he's just very injury prone. And I noticed on his Instagram he hadn't even left to go to Doha 2 days ago. So he might be there now, but it's a complete inversion in time. It's an 11-hour time difference. He's based in California, which is where I am, and he has to go and fight in Doha. It's an 11-hour time difference, so he's going to have to adjust his body clock. It's going to be tough for him. I don't know if that fight will happen as well. I know I'm being a bit cynical here, but I'm wondering if that fight might drop out. I've got a funny feeling some fight is going to drop out. I don't know which one it's going to be. Then further down, just thoughts on, I already talked about why I might play Orolbai round 1. I like Horiguchi at plus 180. I'm pretty sure I'm going to sprinkle that. I didn't know much about Horiguchi, unlike Josh, but I watched some tape on him. He's got a crazy record, 7-1 in the UFC. I think it's like 14-1 in Ryzen. He's got an amazing record. And if you watch some of his tape, to be honest, the tape wasn't so convincing. In the last couple of fights, he was fighting a guy from Africa, I think. In his last fight, he was like 16-8. And he got clipped by him twice and dropped. So I was like, I don't know if it's a good bet. But really, I mean, if you're betting on Horiguchi, you're betting on his wrestling. And I don't think that Tagir is particularly heavy-handed. So I think if Horiguchi wins, it's going to be a decision. And then I just put down here, like, if you're going to play I'm not a big fan of playing debutants at Big Chalk. If I was going to play the Grad Riley fight, I would play Grad moneyline pretty small, just to see how it goes. Because at plus 320 or plus 220, whatever he's at, I think there must be some value there. And then if he did well in the first round, I could hedge out and play the Riley money line. I'm actually leaning more now just to see how the fight goes. And if Riley drops the first round, potentially to back Riley after round 1, because I might get something like even money. So yeah, I think if you're looking at pre-flop, I think it's hard to play Riley now. He's like minus 270, but Grad is plus 220. Yeah, I mean, I think Grad has some ways to win. He's the grappling. He's strong. I think his cardio is suspect, but I think he can last 3 rounds. It's not a 5-round fight. I think Riley, excellent. The what I've seen of Riley, I think he should win the fight. So yeah, I'm more leaning towards backing him live. But yeah, possible sprinkle pre-flop. Josh, what have you got?
Yeah, pretty standard stuff for me, really. I mean, you got a parlay and a few alt bets there. So let's go for the parlay first. The first leg is Horiguchi Ulanbekov round 3 starts. Yes. As I said earlier on, I'm a huge fan of Horiguchi. I really do think that he can do great things in the UFC, and even though he's facing Ulanbekov, who has cemented himself into the UFC already, I feel like it's going to be a fight in which both fighters somewhat like cancel each other out on the ground and on the feet. So I do expect that fight to be a fairly long distance kind of fight. Riley Grad ITD, so that's inside the distance. I have watched tape on Riley, and I have watched him live as well, and he's pretty freaking crazy. Like, there is never a moment in his fights in which he just like stands there, right? He's always putting pedal to the metal, throwing hands, looking for damage and all that stuff. He's awesome. I like him. I reckon that this is a car crash of a fight, and in cases like these, I reckon someone's going down. I don't know who. I don't care as long as someone goes down. Orolbai moneyline. I do not trust Hermansson's weight cut at all. The dude's 37. The dude's big as a middleweight. He's got more muscle than fat. Where is he going to lose the weight? Is he going to cut off a leg or cut off a foot? Like, what's going on here? So I really think that the weight cut's going to hinder Hermansson's ability to fight effectively, and Orolbai, who's going up in weight, is going to look probably more stronger in the clinch or more dangerous with his boxing, whatever, right? The final leg there is a Bilal Gary over 2.5 rounds. It's a Bilal fight. It's a Gary fight. I mean, I know that Gary's finished people, but I don't think he's going to finish Bilal, and Bilal probably can't even finish his dinner. I mean, let alone the UFC opponent. So I feel like this is going to go to the distance, or even like over 2.5 rounds or whatever. The total odds there are 4.02. It's boosted, so it's not really too tempting, but I'll take it. Whatever. Old bets. Loader via points. I was kind of spoken into this whole loader thing by both Dom and Will because they were talking about it throughout the week, and I think last episode they were talking about it too. I normally don't trust these the Ultimate Fighter people. I feel like the whole series is shite compared to the current contender series. So I am not putting too much pressure on me wanting for Loader to win by points. That was a jumble of words. Hopefully it made sense. But if Loader was to win, it would be 3 points because he has good wrestling, he's got good grappling, and if Nordiev can't really dominate on the ground, I do think that there's a potential for maybe a 29-28 towards Loader, and that hits the alt bet on the spot. Manyfield via KO round 1 or 2. If Manyfield was to win any fight ever, it's by KO. He hits like a truck, he's built like a truck, and his name is Atomic. So like all of those 3 things there I said are really casual, but like it's Manyfield. There's nothing really deep about it. Muhammad via points is a whatever. Like I mean, as I said for the 4th leg for the main parlay, Bilal is Bilal, and we didn't really expect a finish from him. We didn't expect like a spinning back kick or a rolling thunder kick or whatever. We didn't expect too much highlight reel from Bilal. I do expect a lot of forward pressure. I do expect a lot of grappling or takedown attempts or even like anything visual that will appease the judges' eyes. I just think that Bilal, if he was to win, it'll be by points, nothing else, right? And then Hooker via KO round 1, 2, or 3. It's highlighted because it's high odds, and I really hope it lands. But I believe that Hooker is being underestimated heavily by a lot of people. I understand the whole Arman Tsarukyan hype. I backed Arman Tsarukyan to defeat Islam when they were scheduled to fight, and they hopefully will fight in the future, and I will back Tsarukyan again. Then that's a promise. But in this fight now, Hooker via KO is sneaky. Like you can't bet on a Hooker versus Weber fight without putting money on a Hooker KO. It's like it's in law, right? It's written in like law. So that's my final alt bet there. So hopefully that hits.
Yeah, we're just saying before we came on, I'd love it if Hooker won by KO round 1, 2, or 3. Yeah, you're a braver man than I am for betting that. And so now we are going to talk about our pod bets. So last week we went 2 out of 5. We got the over in the main event. I think it was the over in the co-main as well. And we lost the Rodolfo Vieira, Benil Dariush money lines, and the Cortez point spread. So let's see what we've got this week. So this week we have Bilal Muhammad by points, Bilal Muhammad plus 3.5 points, Ryan Loader, and the over 3.5 in the main event. Some of these we've already spoken about, but is there anything here that you guys want to point out about any of these bets as to why we like them?
Well, I'm gonna maybe quickly yap on about the Bilal Muhammad 3.5 points thing because I'm getting a handle on these point spread props. You know, I'm learning. Bilal essentially needs to only win 1 round, I believe. So that's going to be easy if he does it in the first round. Like if he uses up all of his cardio, all of his aggression, all of his pressure in the first round, visually it'll look good to the people in charge of the scorecards and all that stuff. You know, the crowd's going to go crazy. So I do think that Bilal is going to win 1 round, and that would likely be the first. So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think he's going to shoot within 30 seconds. He doesn't even necessarily need the takedown straight away, but just needs to get Gary thinking about it. And then, as you say, just reshoot, wait for the right moment. We've got Ryan Loader here. Will, you mentioned you took him at plus 150. I think there's probably potentially still value at plus 120. I think it's you. Josh spoke about Ryan Loader and him being an alumni of the Ultimate Fighter, but probably should speak about his opponent. His opponent has had a tenure in the UFC, right? And he wasn't particularly impressive. And I think when he left the UFC, he got finished 3 times on the regional scene. So that's another reason. It's not necessarily just about Ryan Loder. It's also about Naudiev. He's got that name, that sounding name, Naudiev, but I think he's actually born and raised in Austria, and I don't think he's based there anymore. But that's where he trained MMA. That's where he grew up. He grew up in Austria. Anything else to add? Will, maybe over in the main event?
Yeah, so kind of touched on it in my breakdowns of my bets, but like I just think that the confidence in a Tsarukyan finish is a bit confusing, because Hooker has always been a tough guy to finish. I think the only guy who in this position has ever really had any real grappling dominance over him is Islam Makhachev. And, you know, there's a big difference in size there between Islam and Tsarukyan as well. I just don't see any like really strong evidence to suggest that Tsarukyan is as lethal as people are expecting him to be here. I think if Arman's fighting in a 25-minute fight, it should be expected to go over. And the only time that wouldn't be the case is if you've got someone who is defensively frail in one particular area. And I don't think Dan Hooker is. I mean, he hasn't faced a plethora of very talented grapplers or submission artists for that. So, you know, there's a bit of risk there, but I just think that Hooker deserves the benefit of the doubt. And for me, over 3 points, I would have had the fight to go the distance at Pick'em personally. So if we're only going 3.5 rounds, plus 110, I just think it's a good number. So yeah, I guess it's up to Tsarukyan to prove me wrong. So, you know, best of luck to him.
Yep. So that's everything for this week. Slightly riskier bets in terms of odds. We've got plus odds this week on most of our bets. We'll see how they go. And before we sign off, Josh, do you want to do the honors?
Yes, sir. As always, you can join our Discord where we yap and cap fights, as well as laugh at memes that are always there, and just talk about anything MMA betting related. So feel free to join us there. It's free. I mean, it shouldn't be said, but I'll say it anyway. It's free. Twitter, you can follow our Twitter or X or whatever they call it these days. As we post our videos to Twitter as soon as they are uploaded, so that's the most like direct route to get the videos. Apart from, you know, subscribing, please, you know, just press that button. It's just a one-click thing, you know. And then Reddit, you please you know, look at our UFC Sharp subreddit. Really, it's where Dom and Will post their UFC breakdowns or betting analytics, whatever. They both do a great job. They're both really in depth and really just a highlight for the whole subreddit. So feel free to duck into that subreddit and, you know, comment. I guess what else can you do on Reddit, really? And as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoy this content, feel free to leave a comment and subscribe. And stay tuned for our next episode, in which we give you our early leans and predictions for UFC 323 in Vegas, I believe.